Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Philosophy of Fitness podcast, episode number 59. Today, my friends, I have a very special guest that I am so excited for you to tune into. His name is Kevin Bellack, aka the Sober Ginger, over on Instagram. I've been wanting to ask him to come on the podcast for a while. I've been following him for a while. We followed each other actually for quite some time now. And I met him through 1,000 Hours Dry, which is this amazing account over on Instagram. I'm going to just shamelessly plug them. This isn't sponsored or anything, but they're a really great account if you're looking to ditch alcohol or even kind of cut back on your alcohol consumption. So he is somebody who has such an amazing voice in the sober community and the sober space, and he's so open and vulnerable about his journey, and he offers so much insight. So we had an amazing conversation today that I can't wait for you guys to hear. We talk about so many things within the subset of sobriety. So we dive into big alcohol and all of their kind of sneaky marketing tactics. He actually touches a lot on the labeling stuff that has to do with alcohol, which I think is really interesting. So we talk about that. We dive into, accountability, and he even opens up about his journey in particular with eliminating alcohol from his life, which I thought was super interesting to hear, because in this space, all of us have such a unique story of what kind of leads us to ultimately wanting to eliminate alcohol from the equation. So yeah, we had such an incredible chat. Kevin is an amazing guy. He's also an amazing resource for anybody looking to kind of dip their toe into sobriety, sober curious, alcohol free, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever you want to kind of say it is. But yeah, we really touch it all. So if you are interested in sort of hearing somebody else's perspective on their sobriety journey, then you're definitely going to want to hear today's episode. So yeah, without further ado, my friends, we're just going to go ahead and get into it. So stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back to the Philosophy of Fitness podcast. I am super excited for today's guest. This is Kevin Bellack, aka the Sober Ginger on Instagram. I've been following you for a while, and I've actually been meaning to ask you on the podcast for quite some time, ever since I sort of stumbled upon 1,000 Hours Dry and some of the people in that space. So Kevin, super excited to have you on.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this. It's cool.
Yeah, of course. So I figured we'd kind of take today as an opportunity. I've had a few other people on in the kind of sober, alcohol-free space, and I think it's just such an amazing topic, and I think there's so much to dive into it with. So, I think a great place to start would really just be your background. I know that everyone in this community has such a different story and a different relationship with alcohol. So go ahead and kind of just, give us your story.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So, I never really drank much until I went to college. That was really my introduction, probably like a lot of people, but I know a lot of people start earlier than that. But, so I get to college and I just immediately turned into, a good binge drinker and social drinker. But, there's always social things happening, so it wasn't hard. So that was really where I started my drinking career, I guess. And, going through, it was pretty much, I was in a fraternity. I played football for 2 years. It was kind of those cultures too, like were big, drinking cultures and things like that. So, all that led to just, kicking me off with a binge drinking issue, which you don't think about at the time, but that definitely started me down that road. So, fast forward 4 years, I'm an accountant. So, I started at a big four accounting firm, and, that's a very kind of, work hard, play hard culture. You got big deadlines, and you're working 100-hour weeks and things like that, especially, early on. And, that leads to end of busy season happy hour or parties and happy hours and just drinking with friends and unwinding and doing that. So it's kind of like college 2.0. Now I have some money too.
Yeah.
So that's how that continued. So I was probably like 27, and I got a new job. We just got a new house. My daughter was born. And that kind of, switching jobs kind of, made everything like die down a little bit on that side, and just had more responsibilities and things like that. So I kind of cruised along for a while then, for a number of years into my 30s, without really any issues. I working more, working out less, drinking more, that kind of thing. So then there's the weight gain and stuff like that comes along with it, which I would notice and I would try to do something about, without getting rid of alcohol, of course. Got to keep that in. But then I was probably 35 and, work started picking up more, and we had this huge project that kind of had me working 24/7, 365 really that year.
Wow.
And that, and kind of leading up to that, like my social drinking, my binge drinking, more and more it would be like, oh, I'd have a beer when I got home from work, or, that would kind of creep in. And, so it just started creeping in everywhere. And then, that kind of stressor hit. And, I learned a lot that year. It was great. I don't regret, anything about, any of this stuff. It's not like it was my job's fault. I just didn't have good coping mechanisms to handle the stress. Like I had the one that worked well up to that point, and that was alcohol. So I just leaned into that hard. And, so that year it was a lot of late night drinking. Like I would, be at work, and I would work, come home and work till like 10, 11, 12 at night. And then I'd be like, all right, well, I'm wired now. I drank way too much coffee, and I'm wired now. So I got to come down. So now I got to drink and, have some time to myself, right? You got to have that time to yourself, even though, sleep would be much better. So that really, that year led into, a big implementation the next year of what we just did, which led into, our company being a target for acquisition, which led to more work. And, so it just kind of snowballed and kind of got out of hand for me as far as, my drinking was concerned, because I just used it everywhere. And more I was, ended up in the basement at night, falling asleep on the couch, only to wake up at a couple hours later at 5 o'clock in the morning with, hearing my wife starting to shower upstairs right above me. And then I get up and go sleep for a couple more hours and, wake up, drink a bunch of coffee to get me going, work a bunch of hours, drink, and then start to cycle over again. That was pretty much, my kind of drinking trajectory. It was a lot early on. It kind of died down, and then it's just started ramping up again, until, I started in 2018, getting some negative health consequences and reports, and, all my numbers were going up, and, my doctor ordered ultrasound, got an ultrasound on my liver. I had fatty liver, or have fatty liver still, who knows? Yeah. And that kind of thing. So, but still, I just kept drinking. I kept waking up in the morning with my liver hurting, or, my organs swollen, like my liver swollen right around it, and everything was tender. But I'm like, okay, well, I can't do this anymore. That's a problem. Like, and you'd think that would be a red flag, right? I mean, but, and it is a red flag. You would think I would have done something right away about it, but I still was like, I don't know what to do. I'm not ready to change this yet. So I just kept going. I would try like a sober month here and there, fail early and just quit, that kind of thing. And just try to do it by myself, until the end of that year, when I was like, okay, something needs to change. I can't keep doing this. So that's when I started looking at my options. And I didn't have any, like for myself, personally back then. This was at end of 2018, early 2019. It was like AA or keep drinking. Yeah. And that's what I knew. And, just Googling things and searching for it, and then reading up on AA. And I was just like, that doesn't like fit well with me. Like I don't like a lot of the things that, they're saying I have to do or say or be or whatever. And, looking back on it, would it have been great for me if I would have went? Yes, I think it would have been. But, it just wasn't. I don't know how long I would have lasted though, because I just can't get around some of the things. But that's just me. Like it does help a lot of people. So but that was the thing. Like and plus if I had to go somewhere, I know myself, like I'm going to take the path of least resistance. If I have to go somewhere every day to a meeting and all that stuff, we didn't have Zoom back then. I mean, this didn't exist. I mean, this is 2 or 3 years ago, and this didn't exist, or it was in its infancy or not as well known. There were other options, but people didn't do that. So, I attribute, I was thinking about this earlier, like I always think about this, like I attribute a big kick in my ass to Russell Brand, because I read his book, Recovery.
Oh, wow.
And he's the, kind of saying like, hey, it doesn't work for everybody, but, he reframes those steps to, make it more modern or spiritual versus, higher power and God and things like that. So I listened to it, and it still didn't give me the push I needed, but it did give me some things that I took away. Like the one big thing was like, are you on your own? Fuck yourself is what he said. And that stuck out to me, because I'm like, no, I can't do this on my own. I already tried it on my own, right? I've tried to stop or cut back, and it just doesn't work. It's just a vicious cycle of back and forth.
Yeah.
So, in January of 2019, I ended up sitting on my couch one night, drunk, and signed up for online therapy. That was one of the other things I found in my searching. And I was like, you know what, let me try this and see if this works. I had no idea. I just pulled the trigger. Like it's the same thing. If I would have had to go to a therapist once a week, once a month, whatever, like, I don't know if that would have worked. I don't know if that would have been enough. I don't know if I would have kept going. Like that would have been my thing. So just knowing yourself, I think, is a big, what's going to work for you, maybe. Then fast forward 2.5 years plus later, and we're talking here.
Yeah. Wow. There's
yada, 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 yada.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack with what you just said. I want to say, first of all, I think it's really interesting that I relate to your story a lot. Like in college, I never really drank before I went to college, but then once I got into that scene, it was like binge drinking, every week, 4 times a week. And that was just the norm. Like it was just a part of the culture. And it was almost just expected of you to do that, right? And it's like, if you didn't do that, then you were somehow, an outcast or didn't fit in. So I relate to that a lot. And I also relate to the, like you said, you worked in finance too, like that rat race of the corporate job. Yeah. I only had a corporate job for like 4 months, but I felt that same pressure. Like it was insane hours, and that was the way that you were just expected to cope with all of the stress, was like going to happy hour, going to boozy brunch with your friends on the weekends. And like, that was your way to kind of unplug and reset. And I wound up quitting that job and, pursuing the fitness path instead. And I think that was like the first sort of turning point, but I still struggled with binge drinking even after that. And it wasn't until like the end of 2019 that I had a spiritual awakening, and everything kind of just clicked for me. But I relate to that so much. And I feel like that's something that people don't talk about enough, is just obviously we understand as a society, like the pressure in college to drink. Yeah. I think it runs rampant. But it also runs rampant in the corporate world and the adult world. And I know so many people in my age bracket, and I'm sure you do too, that are still doing the same stuff we did in college. They're still coping with the stress in that same way. And they find themselves saying, I'm so hungover, I'm never drinking again. And then the next weekend, it's the same thing. And it's like this vicious cycle. So it's kind of interesting to hear that you had that in college, and then you kind of took a step away, you leveled off, and then it sort of like picked back up again. So I thought that was really fascinating, but there's so much that I want to kind of like tap into, and you touched on a little bit too, is just how different things work for different people. And I think with like sobriety and going alcohol free, is that this is something that is definitely not one size fits all. If there's anything I've learned, and I'm sure you can attest to this, that different people are going to have a different approach that works for them. Like you said, AA was something that didn't resonate for you. It was something that certainly wouldn't resonate for me. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think it's important to, understand that there's so many different paths. So I know you said Russell Brand kind of, flipped that switch for you a little bit, and therapy too. Was there anything else that kind of, woke you up and was like, okay, this is something that's working for me. This is something that I'm vibing with?
Well, I mean, so when I started therapy, yeah, I mean, it was still like, because I drank all my feelings down, right? I mean, I didn't share, I didn't open up. Like even my wife, like, how's it going? Like she could tell I'm stressed. I'm like, I'm fine, that kind of thing. And I think that's common too. It's just like, I'm fine. Like, I'm not here to burden you with whatever, or I don't want to be, lesser than because I share something, like. So, I mean, that was big for me, which is another reason why I think therapy helped me so much, was because I could sit here and talk to this person and open up to them without, fear of whatever, anything, fear of anything really. But it also, like, it helped me because it was on my phone, like it was right in my pocket, and it was a kind of a weekly check-in call, and then I could message anytime, like text, and that became my journal. And as I had these, not like for everything, but like for the alcohol related things, like I would get a craving and I would immediately go in there and just pull out my phone and start typing, and start just kind of unloading why, like figuring it out and all that. So, I mean, that's really what got me then into journaling by myself. Like just, anything that came up for alcohol or anything, like I would just, open up my journal app and I would just kind of unload in there. I couldn't sleep because I had thoughts swirling everywhere. Open up to the journal app and unload it all. And guess what? I can sleep then. That type of thing. So that really helped me. Just listening to podcasts, audiobooks, like on my way to and from work, I would be just devour audiobooks. When people start, like This Naked Mind is always the number one book I recommend to people. I'm like, just read that and just see what you think. If you're looking, people who are curious and looking, like it's an easy way to hop in, go listen to a podcast, go, just kind of, I kept just going and learning. So that was like therapy, and that was like my two main sources of information, really. Because it wasn't for months until, it's not like I jumped into the sober Instagram community, or I didn't even know it existed back then.
Same.
Yeah. And even when I did jump in, it was like, I did it. I didn't know, I shared for 3 months and I didn't have one follower because I had my account private. I was just posting pictures for myself. It was just another daily kind of, and that was another thing, like, creating kind of daily tasks, like in the morning, like how am I going to start my morning, and what can I do to help myself start this day better and get through it without drinking at the time.
Yeah, it's almost like a way to hold yourself accountable. I know a lot of people that have private accounts, or they're not necessarily ready to kind of share that they've let go of alcohol, but they post a lot and they kind of remain anonymous. And it's kind of interesting because I quit drinking on December 31st of 2019. So it was a while after you did. But when I first started, I had no idea how many resources there were out there. Like I knew that AA was a thing, but I knew that it wasn't something that was going to work for me. And I just sort of, went along the first 6 months, really. I kept it to myself. I didn't tell anyone just because I was afraid of judgment. And, back to what you're saying, the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of, anything that comes with kind of, putting yourself out there in that way. But then I stumbled upon 1,000 Hours Dry. That was really the first, wake up call to me. And I was like, oh my God, there's so many other people out there that are experiencing the same thing, and they're, talking about their journey. And that was such a source of motivation for me. And it allowed me to connect with so many incredible people. It let me find you too. So, I'm kind of curious, like when 1,000 Hours Dry sort of came into your life, like when you found them.
It was actually before I created the Sober Ginger account, because I created that in August of 2019, and I was probably like 4 months, because my last drink was April 28th of 2019.
Wow.
So for a couple months there, I had my old Instagram account where I would, post all my beer and whiskey and barbecue pictures and all that stuff. That was what it was. It was always the best picture of a glass of something, like right before, I had 10 more of them. But so I would kind of follow from that page a little bit. And then, so I think it was that summer, whenever I kind of did my first, I don't know if it was started in August, or it was somewhere around there, whenever, and they were fairly new. I think 1,000 Hours Drive started in April of that year, 2019.
Yeah.
So that was new. So I kind of just stumbled upon it, had no idea. And I just like what they were putting out as far as I just love the information. And that's the thing, like I'm more of, give me the facts, give me some tools to help, and, let me figure this out as I go. And I keep, then I just keep building upon that, and using what works. But yeah, so that's pretty much whenever I found them, because I did find a story on my old account where, I was I hit 3 months, and I said something about 1,000 Hours Dry coming up in a couple of days and starting that. And,
oh, wow.
So yeah, that's when I started following them. And then I created this account, on my therapist's, it was my therapist's idea, because she, I would see all those 1 year ago pictures of my drinks and things like that. And I kind of got triggered a little bit. So I said something to her about it. And she's like, well, why don't you start sharing better pictures now? And then next year, this time, you'll have better things to look at. And, she put it some way like that. And so I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. So I started this account, and I just started posting pictures, and that was it.
Yeah.
Just for me.
Wow. It's kind of cool, like hearing how people start with it. And I don't know if you feel this way, but, like I said, and like you kind of shared too at the start, you were, not as willing to be vulnerable. But it's funny because in my head, when I first decided to stop drinking, I had all of these assumptions about what people around me were going to think when I told them that I stopped drinking, that they were going to label me as, somebody that was an alcoholic or had a problem or would view me differently. And it's kind of funny because I feel like the opposite has been true for me. And I don't know if it has in your case, but as soon as I've started to be vulnerable and open about my journey, I've had so many people reach out to me. And there's so many other people out there that are kind of struggling with the same thing, but I think are a little too afraid to say it. So I think it's awesome that, people like you are speaking out about it.
Well, and that's what helped me, right? I mean, because I dipped I stuck my head out just a little bit, right around the time whenever you were stopping drinking, like at the end of 2019, early January of that next year, like that's kind of when I was, just kind of dipping my toe in this like sharing thing online. And, but every time I did, it was like someone would connect with it and say, oh, me too, or thank you for sharing this. Like, I really needed this today, or something like that. And that kind of just like, okay, if I have these thoughts, I should put them out there because other people obviously have them too. And, get support for myself and other people. And it kind of just, little by little, just kept getting more comfortable with it. And more people would reach out to me, friends, family, and on the side, send me DMs and, then like, I've been thinking about this too. And it's just kind of funny. Like whenever you start sharing, it gives other people the opportunity to do the same. It gives them, whenever you kind of do something, you give them approval or whatever, not explicitly, but just implicitly, you give them the approval to do the same if they want to.
Yeah. It's almost like a gentle nudge of encouragement, right? To get them to do it. And that's what motivated me, was finding other people out there that were speaking out about it. And then I remember the first person, I don't know if you know Alex McRob's Sober Yoga Girl. So she was...
I just did a yoga class with her last week.
Oh, wow.
I met her. Yeah.
She's amazing. And she was like the first person that I had on this podcast. And I was so nervous to put that episode out because that was like my first... sort of like announcement to the world and to everybody that I had ditched alcohol. And that was a little over 6 months. So it was a little while until I really, felt comfortable with that. But once that happened, and I realized, like her community, I started connecting with more people. Than 1,000 Hours Dry came into the equation. And I was like, wait a minute, like this this is something that should be talked about, because obviously there's other people that are in the same boat, like you said. And I think that it's so important for people to just be open and to be honest about their journey. And if someone's listening to this and they're not comfortable, putting their face out there yet, I know a lot of people that aren't. Just even post for yourself. Like you said, that accountability that comes from just, showing up for yourself, even in like the smallest way, I think can make a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you don't want to do that, like, just send somebody a message, like DM me, DM you.
Yeah.
And just be like, hey, I don't really know where to start. Like, what do you think? Like, I'm not going to go share that with anybody.
Yeah.
I keep all those confidential and things like that. But, it's just like, just ask somebody. There's tons of people out there. So if you kind of click with somebody, or you feel like you can ask somebody something, like, do it. And if it helps you to share, do that. If you want to be anonymous, you can. I mean, there's all those options available to you, and that's what's nice about it. Search hashtags for sure.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I recommend to people if they're looking, is like, just go look at the hashtags on Instagram and look at, alcohol free or sober curious or sober or, anything like that. And you'll find all these accounts and people.
Yeah. And there's so much potential to connect with other people through those hashtags, like I certainly have. And even back to something you were saying earlier, is so many of these accounts present information that I don't think that mainstream media like presents to us enough, of just kind of the health negative effects of alcohol, which has been so eye-opening to me. And I think it's been a part of my journey, as I'm sure it has for yours. So I kind of want to like pivot a little bit, sort of switch gears. Big alcohol is something that I really wanted to talk about, and kind of just how toxic their marketing is. So I'm kind of curious, like, your insight and your perspective into how you see big alcohol sort of, perpetuating this narrative that we need to have it, to unwind.
Yeah, it's definitely a big alcohol issue, just like big tobacco. When we're referring to that, it's just all of the alcohol industry itself. But the problem is to start is it's everywhere, right? It's always been everywhere. And so, it is big alcohol teaming with Hollywood and getting it into movies and making it look cool. Unless, you don't see anybody really drunk unless it's Animal House, or unless that person has a problem. I just did air quotes, problem.
Mm-hmm.
And, so, everybody's just doing it normally, and all that. Don't even get me started on advertising, because like, it's one thing not even hitting the like clean, healthy kind of side of things that they're pushing now, but like just the absolute ridiculousness of some of these commercials. It's like, do you really think, Mila Kunis drinks Jim Beam when she's sitting at home? Do you really think Snoop Dogg is sitting there with Coronas right now? Like, it's just that kind of marketing I kind of just do an eye roll with. And it's just like, okay, whatever. But then now it's more, it's now everybody's trying to be healthy, the $1 trillion health industry. And hey, people are going to drink. So let's make clean, organic, antioxidant enriched alcohols, or take drinks like kombucha and make it hard kombucha, like take my seltzer here and, make it a hard seltzer, and just take away all the barriers of anybody having any issue with drinking, right? Because like, kids can pick up a hard seltzer and be like, oh, this tastes good.
Yeah.
What were my options? Like beer or like liquor? Or like, there's nothing like. So I feel like, alcohol is basically like the gateway drug now, with all these kind of seltzers and things out there. Now it's whatever. I feel old when I say stuff like that, but
no, you're fine.
But no, it's just the fact that you can't, your body can't absorb nutrients or like these vitamins whenever your body, when it drinks alcohol, its first task is to process that alcohol out of your body. So, I'm for the record, just in case anybody missed it the first time around, I'm an accountant, so I'm not a doctor or anything here, but I read stuff. So, your body can't absorb these nutrients that you think you're getting, or just because it's clean grapes that go into the wine, like it's still alcohol. Like there's nothing organic about alcohol. It's a carcinogen. So, the fact that you're able to kind of portray it as almost like a healthy thing is wrong. And my biggest pet peeve with it, I think, is the labeling. I think there should be a nutrition label on alcohol with actual nutritional facts about the alcohol. I know I said something like this before, and you get people who are like, well, nobody's going to look at that. Nobody cares. People care. Like if people, how many grams of carbs are in a White Claw? 2 grams. That's what it says on the nutrition label now, because they have added stuff, but they don't have to list anything about the alcohol. So they say 100 calories with 2 grams of carbs on it, no fat, no protein. So I think that accounts for 8 calories out of 100. So what's the other 92? What's the other 92? Like people think that this is like, keto friendly and stuff like that. And it's just not. Like there's probably 25 grams of carbs in there.
Yeah.
But they don't have to list it because they don't have to list anything with alcohol. Yet whenever I have a bottle of water, I got the nutrition facts on there. It has to be there. It's gonna be all 0, but it has to be there. But alcohol, this thing that everybody's putting in their body everywhere, doesn't need to be labeled. That's probably my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah.
And one last thing is just like the fact that the same, don't operate a vehicle while under the influence and don't drink if you're pregnant label that's been there for how many years? How about the fact that, alcohol increases your risk of cancer? What about that kind of label? The people, like I just heard the other day that, only 1/3 of people know that, who were polled, know that alcohol increases your risk of cancer.
Wow.
When it's a known carcinogen that the American Cancer Society itself came out last year and said, if you're looking to reduce your risk of cancer, it is best not to drink alcohol. They didn't say moderation, 1 or 2 or anything like that. So I feel like I didn't get that. Could you try again? Siri didn't get that. Neither do I, Siri. But yeah, I'm going to step off my soapbox here. I don't want to go off on too much of a tirade, but
no. I'm loving like hearing your perspective, because I think in my mind, like when I think about the marketing, I think more of like, the social thing. And then there was that whole Tropicana scandal, which I'm sure you heard about, which was just absolutely ridiculous. If anyone's listening to this, there was this ad of a woman locking herself in her bathroom, hiding away from her kids, making herself a mimosa, like as her way to kind of cope with the stress of parenting, which is wrong on so many levels. That's a whole different tangent. But I think it's so under discussed, the health labeling with alcohol, which I think is so interesting that you're bringing this up, because I think we forget that alcohol is a toxin, right? It serves 0 function in the body. And like you said, the first response of your body is to get rid of it. So it's like you've got all this kind of silly marketing telling you, oh, well, you have somebody that's young or naive, doesn't realize. They're like, oh, well, I'm drinking a hard seltzer and it has antioxidants, so I've got like my vitamin C for the day. And it's like, that is not how it works at all. And it's just, I think it's really damaging that they're tricking people into thinking that it's something healthy. And even to kind of extend off of it, it's like, I've had this discussion with some other people that have come on the podcast, but I feel like alcohol is the new cigarettes. And I know a lot of people are kind of saying that. So it's like, at what point now are we going to start labeling alcohol to the extent that we label cigarettes? Because it's honestly just as detrimental to your health. And it's kind of shocking that we haven't gotten to that point yet. But I feel like there is hope, because I feel like, especially for, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it seems like the last 2 years or so, a lot more people are kind of waking up and realizing, just how bad alcohol is and just how much we don't need it. So I kind of, my hope for the future is that maybe, more discussion of this, more open conversation, more research, more people, learning about it is just going to sort of push us further to hopefully, easing alcohol out in the same way that cigarettes have kind of become obsolete.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, what is it? people, the death rate has to go up to a certain point
Yeah.
for the government to be like, okay, we made a mistake. Now we're going to tax you more so we can still get our money, but now we're going to make you do labeling and all this stuff. But I mean, it's funny because, alcohol is everywhere, right? And our kids see it and all that. Like I did a reel where I smoked like a pack of cigarettes and I had the cigarettes in the house, and I asked my daughter, my 13 at the time year old daughter, like, hey, throw me that pack of cigarettes real quick, because I was doing something for the reel.
Yeah.
And she like didn't want to do it. She didn't want to touch the pack of cigarettes because that's how ingrained it is in these kids that smoking is just so bad for you that it was like she was going to get cancer if she touched the pack. But yet everybody sees everybody drinking, and it's like, how do you expect our kids to like learn these, how to cope with certain things if all they see you do is, come home? And if all my daughter saw me do was come home at night and pour a glass of whiskey and relax, quote unquote, relax. And so that's just teaching her that that's kind of the way to do things. So that was a big part of why I changed too, was, that kind of relationship and that impact I was having.
Yeah. I think it's so normalized now, and it is almost alarming because, I mean, you look at how young kids start drinking now too, especially I think, this is kind of a tangent, but I know like vaping and Juuls were really popular for a couple years. And I think a lot of their marketing was geared specifically towards younger kids because they knew that they could kind of suck them in. And I think some of these hard seltzers, these, trendy looking beverages, it's the same kind of thing. It's sneaky marketing to get people to kind of, buy into it. But yeah, I feel like such a big part of, at least for me, kind of the struggle, at least, throughout my journey of not having it, is just how normalized it is in society and how expected it is of us to just participate in drinking. Whereas it's like, if you say that you aren't drinking, you're the outlier, like you're the outcast in the situation. So what has your experience been with that? Have you kind of felt like a social pressure still with not drinking?
Right now, no, I don't care. Like I'll tell people, and if they have questions, then I'll talk to them about it because I'm comfortable with it now.
Yeah.
This is me 2.5 years later. Like, but early on for sure. Like because like it was January of 2019, I started and I made it like 60 days without drinking. And, with the help of, doing the new things and feeling better. And I was motivated because I finally, I had some accountability to somebody, and, I was able to do that. And then, but the whole time I'm sitting there thinking like, when can I drink again and all that? So I was still toying with, I didn't know what I was doing with it long term. But yeah, I would be like, oh, Lent's coming up. I haven't given up anything for Lent since I was a kid. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm giving up alcohol this year. Yeah. Like I had made up these excuses that fit in my life, because I told, obviously my wife knew, I told my brother because, him and I were drinking buddies, and, he would have found out before anybody else, and both my brothers actually. And I didn't tell many other people. If it came up, I had all kinds of excuses ready at the work happy hour of why I was only drinking one of the bottled waters or whatever. And, I did feel that pressure. I do think that pressure was just a lot of my own on myself. There were people who kind of was like, oh, come on, but those were few and far between. Like, it depends, I guess, like where you're at in life. Right. I was 39 at the time, and, I had a teenager, almost a teenager. And there's less pressure on somebody like me than it is a 24-year-old, right, who's thinking of doing this, or even, however old you want to put it there. But there's different, everybody has different situations is basically what I'm trying to say. So I feel like it was a little bit easier for me from that perspective, but I just had to deal with myself then, right? I had to deal with myself at the happy hour being like, I'm not going to drink. But it is a big deal. A lot of people have those questions, like, especially with like family, like there's an expectation there, like whether it's a parent, your parents drink, or, siblings, and then you're trying to do this for yourself, but you don't want them, because families are tough, and families might like, oh, so and so has a problem, and blah, it spreads. So navigating that is tough for a lot of people. So coming up with getting comfortable with it yourself, and just I like to just push back on people, like all the positive things that are happening as a result of this. Not like, oh, I had a problem, so I had to stop. It's like, you know what, I was drinking too much, I had to stop. I wanted to stop for a little bit, and then I felt so good, and I kept it going, and we'll see what happens. Like, just kind of playing it off nonchalantly, but that takes practice too. So it is just kind of getting out there and getting more comfortable with it as slowly as you need to.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like, for me, I mean, I'm obviously an open book about it now, as you are. Like, everyone around me knows, like, oh, Haley doesn't drink, and really nobody bats an eye at this point. And even when I meet new people, I'm very open about it. It's not something that I hide away from, because I do feel like, for me, from just an accountability standpoint, like, sharing the benefits of it also reminds me of like why I'm doing this. So it's really important. But I remember, even for me in the start, like we had this challenge that I was doing. I used to be an Orange Theory coach, and we were doing this transformation challenge. And so I remember I used the excuse of, oh, I'm doing this challenge, as like my reason for not drinking whenever people would ask, because I wasn't comfortable at first, saying it. So I think for anyone listening, like, it's okay if you're not comfortable, fully like stepping out and, posting on social media about it, screaming from the rooftop, like, I don't drink anymore. Different people, you can say like, oh, I'm doing 75 hard, which is a challenge, where you don't drink alcohol. There's so many things that you could say to kind of not buy yourself time, but maybe just to be a little bit more comfortable in your skin with your reasoning. And then when you're ready to finally kind of step out and own your decision and own your choice, then you can do it. But it's not like there's a fixed timeline for you to have to, like, you don't owe anyone an explanation. Basically, that's what I'm kind of trying to say. So
yeah, you don't owe anybody an explanation. And I always recommend the challenges, because okay, so I don't know that we've talked about this, but anybody that doesn't know, 1,000 Hours Dry account it's an alcohol-free challenge at the heart of it. It's 1,000 hours dry, which is 42 days. So that is something I tell people you're doing 1,000 hours dry challenge. If they say, what's that? Tell them, and just explain it. Like, and if it works, if you're at work, say you're doing it with your brother, and you're doing, or whoever, just make somebody up, or vice versa, and say like, you have money on it, or you bet something. Just that is because people won't give you pressure for that. And in the end, you don't deserve, you don't need to give them any explanation, but people generally need an explanation, right, for this, unfortunately. So you have to get, that's why I like to give them something that they really can't come back to you on. Like, I feel good. I'm doing this challenge where if I drink right now, I'm going to lose, $100, $500, whatever. Like, or you don't have to lose anything, just pride, like, whatever. Just anything like that, where, versus like, oh, I have a problem and I can't do this, or no, I'm not drinking tonight. And they're like, oh, come on, you can just have one, that famous line. So, I mean, just having something, that you're comfortable with saying is, I think, important.
Yeah, especially if you're in a situation where you feel like you're going to be kind of peer pressured, like you said, the, oh, come on, the just one drink line. I'm sure a lot of us have heard that if you don't drink anymore. Like, we've all heard that. We've all kind of been in that position of like, oh, come on, it's just one. What harm can it do? That's when I think it's so helpful to have these kinds of ideas. I never even thought about, doing it as like a bet, or even kind of just like telling someone that, because when you have an explanation like that, or you spin it in a positive light, there's really nothing that people can come back to you and say, there's no refute that you're going to be getting from that.
Yeah. Although I did just think, I'm like, well, what if they come back and be like, oh, I'm in, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. Now we got to create a whole challenge.
Yeah.
But that's good. Get more people in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, something else too with the whole thing is like, I think about, from exercising as a perspective of like, rather than saying, oh, like I have to work out now, say, you know what, I get to. So if you put that perspective with like removing alcohol from your life anymore, don't view it as like a punishment from yourself. Say, you know what, I don't need to drink anymore in order to have fun. I don't need to drink anymore in order to relieve my stress, to be socially accepted, to fit in, to unwind. Like, think about your perspective with your journey too. And is that something that you've kind of done, is like think about your perspective in that way?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always like a more positive person, realistic person, whatever. Uh, I definitely, like, that's one of the things too that drew me to like 1,000 Hours Dry and those types of accounts, and like your account, where it is more of information and positive things about this. And information being, showing negatives or showing, consequences or how this reacts in your body and things like that. But then also showing, looking at the positive side of it. And that's why I always say, like, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning when you don't drink? Like, remember that. Think about that whenever you're debating at night whether you should have a drink. Like, okay, play that tape forward to the next day and how you're going to feel.
Yeah.
Once I had a couple days or weeks in where I wasn't drinking, like my head was so crystal clear at one point. Like, I messaged my therapist, I remember, and after like a couple of weeks, and just been like, I was driving into work today and it finally just clicked. Like, my mind was clear.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've been this clear, and I do not remember how long. And it's because I didn't have alcohol,
Yeah.
clouding all my decisions. I feel like I got off on a tangent there.
No, you're fine.
Where are we going with that?
I'm kind of just thinking like, just the whole perspective thing, right? It's like, rather than, you kind of touched on it with what these accounts share in terms of like positive information. It's like, think about how much you're gaining by not having alcohol in your life versus what you're losing by like missing out on it. I think that's such a huge internal shift. And that's something that took me a while to kind of understand. Like, at first I was like, there were times that I felt like I was missing out. Like, to be completely honest, like, you see social gatherings or you kind of think about your old lifestyle, and you feel that sometimes pop up, but then you got to remind yourself, like, look at how much I've gained. Like, I don't wake up hungover anymore, which is such a huge blessing. Like, I don't have to waste a day or even 2 or 3 days, hungover because I went too crazy the night before, and I don't even remember what I did. So it's like, think about how much you have to gain from making a decision for your health. And that's something else that I want to touch on too, is like, this is such a powerful, awesome thing that you're doing for your health. And it's something you should be proud of. It's not something you should ever be ashamed of doing. And I feel like there's a lot of stigma still around sobriety, which exists, unfortunately. But I think, people like you, speaking out about it and just being open about the positives, like you said, and how beneficial it is, I think is what's probably going to be ushering us into, hopefully, phasing it out like tobacco kind of phased out.
Yeah, because that's the common misconception, right? Like, I have to be, homeless under a bridge and at my rock bottom in order to have have this change in our life. And it's really just like it's been portrayed in society as an us or them problem. Like, it's like, you either have this or you don't. Like, yeah. And that's not it. Like, it's not black and white. There are many shades of gray in there that we where people live for, could be their whole lives, where, they just battle this, where, they just don't know that they can do something differently. And that's just not the case. Like, you can, I say my rock bottom was on the couch right down in my living room, at close to midnight on a Tuesday. I just kind of broke down in tears. That was my rock bottom. I wasn't under, my wife was in the next room. My daughter was there, and, they were sleeping, and, I had a job to go to the next day, and, all those things. And that was, just, it's different for everybody. Yeah. And I just knew I got to the point where I needed to change, and that point can be different for anybody.
Absolutely.
You could sit there and, like, you could look up at 5 o'clock today and be like, oh, have that urge for a drink, and you could be like, you know what, I'm sick of this, and I need to change something. Or you could throw away an empty wine bottle at the end of the night tonight and be like, I can't do this every day. And, which everybody else is doing it. Quote unquote, everybody else is doing it, and it seems okay. But if you feel that you need to make a change for yourself, do it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to think about like the moment when you kind of wake up to it. Because for me, it was in the middle of a concert on the day before New Year's Eve, and I was holding a champagne glass, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, This isn't fun anymore. I actually have chills like thinking about it right now. And it was in that moment that I was like, yeah, this is it. I'm done. And ever since then, I haven't turned back. So it's like it's funny how for all of us, it's something different, and it doesn't have to be like you said, that rock bottom of being homeless under a bridge or being so broken down and down on yourself. There's so many different shades of gray, so to speak, of everyone's relationship to alcohol too, and it's totally different for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say, it'd be like, oh, you're quitting drinking? Like, what? You haven't even gotten a DUI or anything. Like, you're fine. Like, like, that's the bar, and that's what people think. And it's like,
right.
That's not a good thing.
No,
it's not something that you want to get. That's not the point you want to get to.
Yeah.
Take an Uber.
Yeah. Yeah, really. I think we need to normalize the gray area. I think that's something that's huge. And I think with 1,000 Hours Dry, and you and so many other people, like, I think it is starting to get more normalized now. Even in the time since I've stopped drinking and I've kind of explored this community, I see so many more people talking about it now, which is so amazing. And I even think to what you said, it was like the end of 2018 that you said it was only AA or on your own. And look at how much this community has grown now. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so much that I went back and got, certified as a coach because I wanted to help other people, and kind of like how I started down this path. I wanted to be able to connect with somebody and just help them through. And, I coach on Reframe. That's another resource. The Reframe app. Mm-hmm. It has a cutback track or has a quit track. Like you don't have to just be looking to quit. You can be looking to cut back, but it's just all this information in your pocket. But I wish I had, I know it sounds like a plug, but I wish I had all of these tools, because I didn't know what a toolkit was. Like, get my sober toolbox, like with all my things like journaling, meditation, exercise, therapy, like all those things that I kind of built into my own toolbox. Like, these apps like this have all this stuff there and lots of information. Sober Instagram, go check that out. I mean, there's just so much at our fingertips now. So many meetings, podcasts, everything. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Not sponsored by Reframe, but Reframe is absolutely amazing, guys. I'm telling you, like, especially if you're someone that's listening to this and your wheels might be turning. And like you said, if you're not ready to fully ditch it yet, there is that in between area. If you're just looking to cut back, like, there's so many resources in there, and there's so much opportunity to connect with other people and, to find accountability. So, that's amazing. Sober Instagram is amazing. I guess just to kind of wrap things up, would you have any other closing, advice or insights to anybody maybe that's looking to kind of ditch alcohol?
Well, kind of already hit on a lot of them, but I mean, just reach out and talk to somebody. Don't feel like you have to do this on your own. And, don't feel like, there's only a couple options and you're not willing to do any of them. And what if someone sees me or, thinks negatively on me? I mean, there's so many things now that you can just do, in the background and get support with, that we just talked about, that, it can't hurt to try and reach out to us, message us, message 1,000 Hours Dry, message any of these accounts and ask advice. Like just reach out and ask. And if you are, drinking and, somebody does say, like, oh no, I'm not drinking tonight, or I'm not drinking or whatever. If you're getting around and you're like, you want a beer? Oh, you're not drinking? Like, okay. And just what, do you want something else? Like, don't say, why aren't you drinking? Like, be supportive of that person, because you don't know what's going on in their head. You don't know what they're battling with. So, I mean, just show some respect and help them out.
Yeah, that's some sound advice for sure. I want to give you a chance to kind of just like, plug yourself here. So where can people find you? Where can they stay connected with you? If people want to work with you too, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me. I'm at the Sober Ginger on Instagram, and you can just send me a message there. I post there, and then I host over on 1000 Hours Dry. I host on Saturdays there for now, and we've done a bunch of lives where I've talked to people. Go check those out. But try the challenge for yourself. See how it feels. We're having another one starting for Sober October, so it'll be
nice.
Sober October for overachievers, because we're 42 days. So it'll dip into November a little bit. But yeah, check us out over there. Look at all our other hosts and connect with them. If somebody, like I said, if you click with somebody, and if you want to work with me, go check out the Reframe app. I'm coaching over there. And that's just a great tool to have in your pocket. And it's, for the price of, I think, 2 drinks a month.
Yeah.
Like that's the way I always kind of look at it too, is like all those things that you save and all the positive things. Like, how about money? Like the fact that if I haven't looked lately at my app, but if I had to guess, I'm probably above $20,000 now saved over like a little over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know people are less. I saw somebody the other day post they saved like $37,000 in that time.
Oh my God.
There's all those benefits. That's just another one. But yeah, check me out anywhere over there, and you can message me, ask me any questions.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to answer.
That's such an overlooked thing. By the way, the money you save, I would have to go back and see how much. But yeah, that's incredible, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. This was really awesome, and I hope everybody listening to this sort of gained a little bit more insight and found something valuable from our conversation. But Kevin, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.